Looks over. Oh no, of course not. Goes right into it. What's up,
Yeah,
guys? Sorry, I started the broadcast before our guest is here.
Mhm. Yeah, we want to make sure Facebook didn't stop our live from taking place. So
And
hopping
for
on
once it didn't. So of
just
course,
ahead of it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
of
cool.
course. So hi everybody. Yeah. Um, we will have Vincent on hopefully shortly. I sent him the link, so he should be on shortly. Hope
Mhm.
everybody's having a good. What are we on Wednesday? Hump day.
Yeah, it's Wednesday.
Oh Lord, days just kind of meld together.
Mm-hmm.
So hope everybody's having a good hump day. Hope everybody made it through okie dokie.
Mm-hmm.
Want to give I guess while we don't have anybody on, definitely want to give a RIP to the actor for the creature from the Black Lagoon. That's a shame.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of a
Yeah,
kind
that
of a
was
big
sad. He was the last surviving Universal
universal
monster
monster.
actor. Yeah.
Yeah. So RIP for him. RIP for Tom Sizemore. His family's going through a absolute
Yeah.
fuckery right now.
Yeah, I
He
didn't
had,
even completely understand what happened. I mean, it
yeah,
sounded like he had an
he
aneurysm.
had a brain aneurysm, and or I think it was due to a stroke. I believe that's what Ashley was telling me. My wife, she was telling me that.
Yeah.
And he just has no chance of getting any better than where he's at now. The doctors have kind of said, you know, there's nothing we can do. There's no road to recovery.
Yeah. Well,
So
he must have suffered enough brain
brain
damage that
damage.
he's basically a vegetable.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Julian
Uh,
Sands,
Oh,
that
dude.
what a fucking what an absolute tragedy that is too. And I haven't seen any confirmed anything, but the man's been
No.
missing since January 13th, so it can't be good. God damn it! And you know what's sad?
Yeah.
Both of those guys, from what I remember correctly, both of
Mm.
those guys were at a con, not at the same one, but they were at cons that we could have went to. I'm pretty sure they were.
Yeah.
Julian Sands, I think, wasn't that long ago, but what a tragedy, man. I mean,
Yeah.
and Clint, you being a hiker, about climates and inclement weather and everything, and
Yeah.
it would have had to have been bad for somebody that they have said is an experienced
Well, it
hiker.
sounds like, yeah, it sounds like he was doing stuff a bit more challenging than what I'm used to. And in higher elevations, with unpredictable weather. I mean, Lord knows what happened. I mean, he could have fallen, he could have left the trail, you know, um, the weather could have changed and he decided he was going to hunker down for a while and something else took place. Could have had a medical event. Nobody's going to know unless they find him, but I don't think they're going to. I mean, the weather's been so bad out there, they haven't even been able to look very much.
Yep, yep.
So,
It's terrible.
I mean, you'd almost have to presume that he's not
Unfortunately,
not
yeah,
okay anymore.
yeah. I know. I think what is it? John Malkovich came out and he was like, what a shame, and it's just like, God damn, man, like it's just fuck, just awful. Like
Hmm.
I hate to see things like that, man. Especially like it's so close to home because like my wife, she does cardiac cath, so she messes with the heart. So like the Tom Sizemore thing is like hits close because I know how bad that stuff can be. I know how you know um strokes and heart attacks affect people, and the
Yeah.
fact that he
Now,
is where he is really fucking sucks.
yeah, and how quickly they can happen.
Yeah, and it's funny that um we just talked about the relic,
Hmm.
on Saturday, during our hangout, and it was like, he was in it with Penelope Ann Miller, and what a great movie that was. I mean, honestly, it's
Hmm.
definitely like an underrated like creature feature.
Yeah. Do you
So,
have a favorite Sizemore movie?
it's okay. I There's a movie way back when that some people may remember, some people may not,
Hmm.
and I don't know if I should bring it up, but I'm going to anyway, so fuck it. So there is a movie called Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man.
Oh my God. Okay.
And I I fucking love the movie. And the reason why I love the movie is because my mom,
Don Johnson's your hero.
1000%. I've said it on multiple podcasts, on multiple.
You can't blame the woman.
I fuck no.
He's a good-looking dude.
I've said it before. My aunt had Don Johnson in her laundry room. No, I'm sorry, in her bathroom, in the basement. So every time I had to take a shit, I had to look at Don Johnson. So fantastic. You know, and then every time, you know, I would do laundry at my mom's old house, I have to look at George Michael. So I was like, thank God George Michael wasn't in more movies, because fuck, I wouldn't have been able to get away from anything. But yeah, Don Johnson, I'm like, can I take a shit in peace, Don? Please. Yeah. But yeah, Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, as it's such a dumb fucking movie. It's so fucking stupid.
It's pretty bad.
It's fucking horrible. It's so stupid. But we rented it, and of course my mom was like, "Oh my God, Don Johnson. Holy shit." And you know, Mickey Rourke is opposite of Don Johnson. It's like, fuck, like you couldn't get two better actors for this? Like, okay, do your thing. But yeah, that honestly, it just sticks. It just really sticks with me, because that I was, you know, with my mom and everything. So it was like, man, but you know, he had so many great roles. You know, Saving Private Ryan is probably the one that people remember him most. I mean, Black Hawk Down, Natural Born Killers. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, Black Hawk Down is probably the one that stands out for me with him. You know, he just had such an outstanding character in that.
Oh yeah,
you know? Yeah,
1000%. I like I said, the reason why it kind of sticks out with Harley Davidson and Marlboro Man is just because of my mom. But I mean, you can't really put a favorite on. And we got our guest.
Hey
What's
guys,
going on, brother?
What's going on?
Finally made it.
Hey,
welcome.
Doesn't matter. Better late than never, especially because you're a busy motherfucker. So we know how it goes.
Pretty busy these days. How you both doing?
Pretty good.
Hanging in there, man.
Good. Cool.
Hanging in there. So we are live, and so just to give you the heads up, you know, in case you want to throw out spoilers, you don't have to, or you can, and everybody will pick up on them. But yeah, so welcome to our awesome podcast.
I think he left already. It's frozen.
Damn. Shit, man.
He's like, live. I'm not doing that.
Live. Fuck that. No, I can't do that. All right. Well,
how am I doing now?
Oh, hey.
Oh, hey. Yeah, you was talking shit, and now he's like, bam, back. Fuckers talk about me, and now we're going back on.
But I keep going in and out right now. Sorry.
You're all right, man.
I'm doing my Canadian.
Well, hopefully that'll straighten out a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you got like Bush Internet or something like that.
That's Bush Internet? What the
That's what our Canadian friends call it.
Oh, God, Jesus. Holy shit. I'll send them a VPN or send them a hotspot.
Yeah, really.
All right, well.
So
we're just going to sit here and watch Clint drink beer and talk about Don Johnson.
That's working good.
It is.
Yep. And Tom Sizemore and poor old Julian Sands.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Poor old Vincent. His internet has died.
Yeah. Seems that way.
Well, damn.
So are you in favor of them remaking Arachnophobia?
No.
I'm not now. I mean, I was kind of okay with it before, but now that we have these issues with Julian Sands, I'm like, no.
I mean,
no, I want him to be remembered that way.
Right. All right, we'll try again.
Try that.
Oh yeah, you're a lot more fluid and a lot more. Yeah, definitely.
All right, yeah. I jumped to the other router. That's here.
Sweet.
Oh man.
All right, fancy ass.
2 routers.
Try it.
Right. All right.
Well, you got the normal and the 5G. You got to pick.
Right. Oh yeah. Get that 5G all day long. All right. So, thanks for coming on, man. You have some amazing projects that have come out and are coming out, and we want people to know about them. So, obviously, as you can tell by our names, Never Hike Alone is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
As far as the Friday 13th fan films, tribute
Mhm.
films, however you
Mhm.
want to designate them, pretty much upper echelon when it comes to the way it was filmed, the cinematography, the lighting, everything about it was nothing short of a Hollywood budget,
Yeah.
Hollywood look.
In a lot of ways, it set a new standard for fan films. So, I
Mhm.
mean, because you see a lot of varying degrees of like quality when you watch those, just based on their level of experience and, of course, the quality of the equipment that they have, um, and whatever money they got to throw at it. That's always important as well. And I was just curious, what made you want to do that? I mean, to put that much effort into it.
I mean, at first, it really wasn't much effort. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like we had that idea from day one.
Hmm.
Originally, it was just like a couple of guys getting together. It was me and my friends. We could all fit in one car. We could drive out to the mountains. We could mess around in the woods. We could film some stuff with our cameras. I wanted to build a new Jason costume and try to come up with something, and ultimately just come up with a nice bite-size fan film that we could show to people and be like, this is what Jason Voorhees could be if you kind of pare him down and you work him like this way and you dress him this way. This is a cool way to sort of make Jason scary again. And in the process of sort of making the film, we just kept coming across all these different opportunities, and the biggest one being the abandoned camp that we shot at for Never Hike Alone 1, which was our main location. Once we found that camp, and it was about a dozen buildings with empty rooms, and some of them had furniture still, and some of them didn't, and there was a lot of supplies up there that were still left behind. We kind of said, wow, like, we don't just have an idea where we can have like a hiker walk into the camp and sort of run into Jason right away. There's an opportunity here to sort of take our time, and let's go through the camp, and let's go sort of explore it through the eyes of this character. And while we were sort of doing it ourselves, I remember when we came across sort of like the shower set. And I went, wow, that kind of looks like the shower set from the first film. Technically, if we were in this room and it was the proper room, there'd be blood against that back wall. And while we were also walking around the camp, there were trees basically either marked for being chopped down or whatever they were for, marking a trail or something, but they had those ribbons. And so I'd see the ribbons and I'd think about the death scenes and sort of started coming up with the concept of like, ooh, like there's bodies spread out anywhere. So they gotta tie the tag so they know where a
Yeah.
crime scene is, so the cops know where to walk. And then sort of went with the idea that like in our world, the original Camp Crystal Lake, nobody ever went back to it. The in canon, you could say that it got reopened in part 6. You can say it got reopened in part 7. We just sort of went with like kind of brushed that aside and said, they called it that, but they sort of built it near it, not on it. No one ever went to the original site. That site was too scary, and no one ever paid to have it cleaned out. And when I talked to a couple of law enforcement friends of mine, they said, yeah, if somebody, if that land falls to the wayward, no one claims it, no one sends someone in to actually clean it up, it will never get cleaned up. Like the police don't clean it up, the coroner doesn't clean it up. No one goes in there. You're in charge of it. So since Steve Christie was dead and no one in town wants to buy that land because they think it's cursed anyway, sort of did that. So I know it's kind of a long drawn out answer, but what I'm saying is that it was a sort of a process of time, sort of like, I think we could add a little bit more. You know what? I think we could add a little bit more. Oh, maybe if we raise a little bit of money, we could do this. Maybe if we raise a little bit of money, we could do that. And before we knew it, we had like an hour-long film with all these twists and turns and stunts and effects, and sort of just coming up with all these ideas, all based around the fact that like we have decent equipment. We have a good crew. We have a lot of people who work in the industry. And if we can get together every weekend and put a piece of this movie together, which took a year and a half to film, then maybe we can put something that like people will watch and it will go online, and maybe it will become popular and maybe it won't. But I mean, for the most part, we were just trying to make something that was, watchable, really. I mean, it was like, I just want to make this watchable. I just want people to watch it and sort of get a little confused as to how this film was made, because films with no money usually don't look like this. And we sort of figured out that we had a good formula pretty early on. We knew that we had a good team. Our test footage was really nice. We were really happy with it, going through like the test phases of testing different cameras. And we just used it as this exercise for all of us to sort of grow as filmmakers. You know, it was a place to go out and fail. You know, sometimes we went out on weekends and we would film some stuff, just like our small group, and we'd like leave a truck in the shot, or like for like not have the right equipment, or something on the camera would fail, or something on the truck would fail, like while we were trying to drive and do drone footage through the mountains. And so there was a lot of trial and error, and through that we were able to build this sort of bigger and better way of doing things for us that led to us being able to make something like Never Hike Alone, and then step up our game when we went into like the Pathosis project, Never Hike in the Snow, and Never Hike Alone 2, and some of the other projects that we've helped out, like Jason Rising. So it's really been sort of like this big growing process since then, but it all started really from just, like I said, 5 friends going into the woods and saying, hey, you want to make a movie?
Yeah. That's really
That's
cool.
the kind of answer I was waiting on. That's the
Yeah.
kind of answer I want right there.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. The camp was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've found myself really appreciating the inventiveness of the story, because I mean, you didn't have very many characters.
No.
For most of it, you basically had 2. And you got like a vlogger basically talking to himself. And exploring something and making a bad decision on the trail and saying, well, I wouldn't normally do this, but going back the way I came.
Yeah, but in the moment you kind of understand. I'm like, oh yeah, I can cut through. What's the big deal? No one's going to get mad if I just go through here.
Yeah.
And then you also understand why he wants to stick around, because it's good content. And then I would say that there is a third character, which is the camp itself. We tried to treat the camp as something that was so interesting that it almost had a life and story of its own, which it does. Yeah. So part of the film, while we're not sort of jumping right into the Jason side of it, is just reminding people of where this all came from, why this all started, and bring fans down like a memory lane that was really sort of like, welcome back. Like, it's been a long time since you've been here. Like, we've been to other places. We've been to space. We've been to hell. We've been to all these different places, and we've seen different versions of this camp, but you've never seen one that was so intimate. And was really just kind of putting you in the shoes. And I don't know about you guys, but as a fan, I used to daydream about being like, what if I woke up and I was in Crystal Lake, like in my dreams, and walking around and like spying on Jason? Like, that was my thing as a kid. I wanted to find Crystal Lake, find a hiding spot, and spy on Jason, because what does he do in between the films? And so part of that was born from there. And that's really where I got the inspiration from for a lot of that stuff of like walking around the camp.
Well, the one thing, and you kind of said it, at the top was, everybody, and of course anybody that's ever seen the first Friday the 13th knows that it was, Pamela Voorhees and not Jason. So it was cool to kind of come back and feel like the first film, but with Jason, because, you never, and of course, he's always been in Crystal Lake, and part 6 probably shows it the best, where he's kind of going through, the camp, how he does, he goes through the cabins, but it's not like how this was. It was like, you could really see like cabin for, like you said, room to room to room to room. You never really got that with the other ones, not with him. It was always, okay, he's going to be in the woods. He's going to be at this house and this house and this house. It's like, well, aren't we on a camp? Like, isn't there multiple cabins? He's going like,
they never try to reopen that thing. It's like, it takes 6 movies. It's
right.
Like,
so it's like, you got like party houses we're going to, we got boats we're going to, going to Jason, takes Vancouver.
Yeah.
So it was never like really brought back, like Never Hike Alone was. It was like, now you can see what it would have been like if Jason was the killer in the very first movie, because it felt like that's what it was.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of it too was, like you just said, like in all the other movies, Jason is sort of drawn away from camp. And he's attacking Packanack or Higgins or the Jarvis house, and then when he goes back in part 6, it's called Forest Green. So like, even though it's Camp Crystal Lake and it's having it called Forest Green, there's something about that that's sort of like, it's cool, but it's not quite the same because it's a different name. Part 7, he doesn't go back to the camp, but he's near the camp. Or I'm trying to remember. No, that was actually part 8, because in part 8, as if they float by, you see Camp Crystal Lake and the lights turn down. So you never really get back there. He's more about like, he's a curse on like almost the entire town rather than just this place. So being able to bring him back to the camp, I think there was something like in 2009, like they spent so much time underneath the camp in the tunnels, and like we spent a little bit of time walking around the camp. But while we were doing it, I felt like we were being taken on sort of like a different kind of tour. I didn't feel like it was the authentic place. I feel like they were just trying to teach milestones to like, oh, it's Jason's name on the bed, which isn't like, of all the things I wanted to see in Camp Crystal Lake, a bed with Jason's name on it is not one of them.
Not one of them.
And it just, you know, and there were little things here and there, but at the same time, it still didn't feel as authentic of what we tried to do. And I tried to really express that in Never Hike Alone and be like, no, I want it to feel like we're in the same place. And I wanted to have that authenticity. And not really play games. I wanted the camp to be the focal point of where Jason would be. He wouldn't be below the camp. He'd be hidden somewhere in the camp, whether in an attic or, you know, in a false room or, you know, in a basement, you know, at the most of it, but something, but also something that felt like it was part 2 shack life too. So like bringing that element in there. I think a lot of the things that make Never Hike Alone work, I think for a lot of people, is we try to blend a lot of different elements, like some of the best elements from different films into one movie. Try to attributes of Jason, looks of the camp, sort of style of kills, or just its style of like Jason movement. And so it really is sort of like a culmination of like everything, in my opinion, it was everything I learned about Friday the 13th after all those years, and then saying, these are my favorite parts of Friday the 13th. And, you know, to tell everyone the truth, like the formula is fine, but as an adult and as someone who's seen 12 films with the same formula, I'm ready to move on from the formula. And so it became sort of a theory of, can Jason survive in other stories? And I think that Never Hike Alone is a proving ground to say, you know, Jason Voorhees and Friday the 13th actually works a lot better in modern times when you start applying different types of stories to it. So Never Hike Alone being like an adventure story, Never Hike in the Snow sort of being like an episode of True Detective where people are trying to figure things out, but you're seeing how different lives are sort of intertwined. And, you know, Never Hike Alone 2 is sort of like, it's not as like a backcountry adventure movie as Never Hike Alone 1 is. It's more of a, it's, I don't know, it feels more like almost like a superhero movie in a way where like there's a good guy and there's a bad guy, and the good guy is trying to defend people and the bad guy is trying to kill everybody. And unless the good guy stops the bad guy, a lot of people are going to die. And it has to do with, you know, it has some adventure qualities because you have multiple characters coming together that have to work together, that all have different backgrounds, that all have different sort of ties to Jason, but all have a commonality that they've all been victims of Jason. I know that's, you know, a kind of not a theory, but sort of a request by fans, is they always wanted to see like a bunch of survivors come together and take on Jason. Well, without having to go down the alumni like list and like go get all these alumni to come back and come in an excuse for all these alumni together. One cool thing about the Never Hike Alone series is that we've built a series of survivors and victims that are in our own world that we can bring together in one movie. Luckily, we get to bring one alumni back, which is Tommy Jarvis, and we get to add, you know, Rick Cologne on top of that, who's not necessarily a survivor per se. He was locked in a jail cell. He never got to face Jason, so he didn't survive anything. He's more just lucky to be alive.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you have Kyle, who survived the first movie, and you have Diana, the doctor, the mother of the child who was killed in Never Hike in the Snow. She's a victim in another way. That's sort of like, she's like a Rob Deere in a way, like, and the way that Rob came in as a character later on in the movies is someone who, you know, suffered a secondhand victimhood to Jason because his sister was killed and now his family's dealing with that loss. Same thing with Diana Hill. Her son was killed, but she doesn't necessarily know exactly what happened yet. And no one's really ever said that he's been killed or not. He's still just missing. Mm-hmm. So, you know, no body's ever found. And it's sort of showing these different sides of like Friday the 13th, that it isn't just an insular movie. Like the movie just doesn't stop and start at the runtime of that specific movie where those people aren't affected outside of it, but that we actually get to see some of like the way that Jason's sort of actions bleed into real life, the way that we see families sort of have to mourn, or you see, you know, in like Kyle's case, like he can't wait to get back to his family. Like he just wants to get out. He just wants to survive this night and get home. And, you know, the fact that these characters are carrying through multiple films sort of, I don't know, brings something special to Friday the 13th, which we haven't seen before, which is like a real nice continuity between the stories that all connect and the stories keep going. And we sort of had that with Tommy Jarvis, although the actor changed 3 times, but it was, or the actor changed 2 times, but, you know, with that, we got continuity. And so we never really got that again other than that. That's why, for me, the sweet spot is always 4 to 6, because I feel like I'm following one character through a series of events and I'm growing with that character. Now we get to grow with that character one more chapter. And we get to grow with our other characters from the other films into this chapter. They're sort of like swan song as they all come together and face Jason at the end of this movie.
Damn. Love it. I know. I'm like, my head's going around like fucking a thousand times, but I love it. And I love a lot of the things that you said there, especially, the formula. And we've talked about it with a couple people. You can only do so much with, walking through the woods, killing somebody over and over and over again. Yeah, you can find different ways to do it, but it's always the same. It's always Jason killing everybody, and then there's one, maybe two survivors, and it's always the same formula. And that's kind of why, like, and Clint can attest to it, like, Jason Goes to Hell. That a lot of people shit on that movie. I mean, absolutely just go batshit nuts on it. But it was different, and that's why people didn't like it, was because it was different. Same thing with Jason X. It was different than the other movies, but it was a one away from the formula. Yeah, he was still killing people, but he did it in a different way. Jason was barely even in Part 9. Part 10, he gets half his shit blown off, and then he's got nanobots, and he's Uber Jason.
I do like Jason X. It is an interesting story. I think it's it's aliens with Jason. And aliens with Jason and some college kids, which is there. But like, aside from like the low, like if that had a bigger budget, it would probably be a lot better of a movie. And even then, it's not a bad movie. The motivations are there, and that's the whole thing. It's like, what are the motivations? What's driving these characters? Why is Jason in the woods? You know what I mean? Like, what's the reason why he's here? And so sometimes when it's just sort of arbitrary, we woke up, and so now people are around, so he's killing it. It's like, okay, now we're starting to get a little stale. But when there's something else going on, there's other stakes there, it sort of makes it a little bit more special. And that's one of the challenges with Never Hike Alone too, because we're sort of going back to the formula now. Like, now we finally get to make our formulaic film because we have the money to get additional characters. We can do more deaths. We can have more scenes. We can have more people get involved. And so the challenge has been to sort of like make sure we don't go down the typical fan film path of these really sort of clunky, not formulas, but not formats either, but structures, sort of like where you can feel the movie kind of start and stop. Like, wait, what are we doing here? Or like, that was like, how do we just go from that scene to this scene? Like, there's no
no flow to it.
Yeah, there's no flow to it. Yeah. And so you have like these sort of like collections of scenes that sort of bump into each other, and like some of them are better than others, and a lot of people are like giving the best that they got. But there's like certain things that when you've been doing this for a long time, and you sort of get used to knowing that you have to prepare for transitions between sequences, and you sort of think about that ahead of time. Like, oh, when we go into this, scene, we're going to sort of do X, Y, and Z. Like, like a good example, or like probably our best example ever, is in Never Hike Alone 1. When Jason sits up and it transitions to the moon in the eye, and then we go into the classic moon shot, and then we come down to him. Like, it's all well thought out. You know what I mean? We're doing things purposefully to get us in there, and you feel like, okay, I've been driven to the next scene. Or, if you're left with that cliffhanger, moving to the next scene in another context that starts a new idea, but like does it in a way that sort of doesn't remind you that you're on a ride. Because films are like rides. You sit down, the credits come up at the beginning, and the ride starts to move.
Yep.
And the better the movie is, the less you feel like you're on the ride. You're just experiencing it, and it feels real. Like you're just in it, and you can't look away, and it pulls you away. And then all of a sudden, the movie will do something, or it will cut a weird way, or somebody will say something, and all of a sudden you're off the ride. You can
take you out of the experience,
right?
Yeah, you can kind of see like, oh yeah, no, this is just a ride with like animatronics, and like okay, I feel it now. I feel like almost like. Sometimes even when like the filmmakers don't take it serious enough, and film and scenes get really, really goofy, like people start to stop taking the movie seriously as well. Or even if they're enjoying it, they don't have that same connectivity to the characters like they did before. So it's definitely a challenge, because with Never Hike Alone, it was tough to tell a story with one person, but honestly, like setting Andrew Lady loose with a camera in the woods to film himself do stuff is actually a lot easier than you would think, because he's really good at acting. Mm-hmm. He's a really personable guy, and telling that story and having him just speak to the camera was like, as far as logistically goes, is a lot easier day on set than having 4 or 5 people have a discussion in the same scene. It's just one guy talking to something that's like not even really recording for the most part. Actually, a lot of the takes are him actually recording himself. But there isn't that back and forth. There's only one coverage to get. There's only like one side of the story to really tell. And then the camera, the POV does the rest, and it never talks back. So, when you go into that sense of like building scenes with people, then there's a whole new sort of level of sort of preparation that you have to take with the actors to sort of get them in the right position when they're saying lines, to move them around, to, the blocking and the camera lead and stuff like that. So it's really sort of, I feel like that's where a lot of fan films go to, like, that's where they get a little stiff. Like, they're trying to have a lot of people say stuff. There's a lot of information to get out. But a lot of the times they just turn into these info dump things. Where it's like, okay, I've had this theory about Jason my entire life. Let me just sit here for about 10 minutes and just explain to you everything that I know about Jason. I've written this stuff in forums for years. And then you're sitting there being like, what are you talking about?
Right. Like just stop what you're doing.
Just stop where you are and like figure out a way to show this stuff, and like, or figure out a clever way to sort of like deliver this information that doesn't make it feel like an info dump. And, a lot of people, sometimes people are like, oh, as long as like the theory comes out, that's the big part. Like, they got to hear the theory, and it's not the theory, because like, you just said with Jason Goes to Hell, the theory behind Jason Goes to Hell and the theories that went into Jason Goes to Hell are out of control. But they never spin around. Like, they explain things, but when they do, you're so drawn in by the actors, or you're so drawn in by the moment where stuff's going in, like, like when Creighton Duke is breaking what's-his-face's fingers trying to deliver information, like, it turns it into a scene where things are going on. And that's where, like, Adam did a really good job of taking an idea that I think was thrust upon him and making the best of it. I've heard the original idea for Jason Goes to Hell. Adam told me about it. It's ridiculous. I don't know if you guys know about the documentary that's coming out. Heart of Darkness.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm not going to spoil anything, because I think Adam talks about it in depth in Heart of Darkness, about like the original story that he was going to tell. And I was like, I cannot believe you pitched this. And they were like, nah, body snakes. We need a body demon snake. That's what we need instead of that.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And so like, but and so life goes on. I'm just doing fine now. But like, at the same time, it's like, as crazy as that movie is, it's definitely is probably one of the best, if not the best, in terms of production value. The way the film looks, the way the film moves, the way the film is cut, the acting, it's all really, really great. It's just surrounding like this thing where it's like, it's crutches. Jason is barely in the movie. Mm-hmm. And we're watching people act as Jason, as real people, and it's sort of just not the same. At least for me anyway. And because I'm just a big nerd. I just want to see Jason. You know what I mean? When they blew up Jason in the first 5 minutes, I lost my mind.
I was like, what? Just now he's done? What?
I think this was like, hour. I think I had just discovered Friday the 13th too. Like, I remember being a kid, Manhattan movie trailers were coming out. I never got to see it in the theater. I saw Manhattan eventually at home. But I think that, like, I remember when Jason Goes to Hell came out, like, it was one of the first ones that I was like, I can't wait. This is going to be it. Like, oh my God, after 8 movies, they're finally going to figure this out and like put it all together. And then I watched like I was like, what is going on? No, I was so mad. I was like 12. I was just like pissed. I was like, these people, they ruined my childhood. And I was still
it's so funny you say Manhattan too, like, because and whenever we talk about Friday the 13th, I always bring up the story, because it was always on USA, like up all night, or it was part 7 and then part 8 and then like Pet Sematary 2, and then you try to go to bed and get up for school the next day, and you're like fucking traumatized because you just watched 3 horror movies you shouldn't have watched.
Yeah, right.
But you don't care. But
my God, Pet Sematary 2 with the scarf and the dirt bike. Oh my God. All my friends had dirt bikes too. I was petrified for a week. I was
like, I'm not hanging out with them guys.
Right? Yeah.
Like, those aren't my friends anymore. We're done with them. Yeah, man, that's kind of how we felt about Jason Goes to Hell as well, was that it was just because Jason wasn't in it, that's why it was bad. And it was like that, you got to look past that. And that's with a lot of movies like that. It's like, you just look past whatever. I mean, you can even look at Freddy versus Jason. Like a lot of people shit all over that movie because it was like, oh my God, what is this? But even if you look at that too, Jason has motivation there because he's brought back by Freddy to kill, so everybody remembers Freddy, and then you can't stop him. So it's like, well, there's the story. What's wrong with it?
I think for me, with where I would have said like where I was sort of let down with that film is I actually thought that like the story's brilliant. The fact that they met in hell, he brought him back so he could build the fear factor again and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's Jason looks like a big dumb hobo.
He
He just looks so doopy. Like it's just one of those things where I think as I started to get older, I loved the Paramount Jason, and I felt like Jason looked awesome through for most of the films, and he was really cool between 6, 7, and 8. The face in 8's not great, but I think before that mask comes off, it's one of the coolest looking Jasons ever.
100%.
And then like in Jason Goes to Hell, he sort of has like the blue jumpsuit, and he looks a little bloated because they put Kane in this big sort of like full body suit that had like coolant in it and stuff, and so it kind of bloated him out, and it sort of had the weird look. I'm not a huge fan of the look. Then in Jason X, it's sort of like a cheaper look. It doesn't look anything like previous Jasons. It's like a very interesting sort of styling to him. The first time they put the jacket on him, it's a very thin jacket that they put on him. He doesn't really stand out. He's got the hair. It's
one of the only times you can see his eye too. It's like
eyes. Yeah, and he looks like a little bit like a caveman, and that one just looks. It doesn't look anything like anything we've ever seen before. So that was very odd. And then Freddy versus Jason comes along, and again now he's like gigantic. He's got the big Frankenstein boots on, which look kind of goofy. The jacket is just so big and like bulky and like hanging off him and like giant sleeves, and he's just like lumbering around. And I get it, like that's what Ronnie Yu was going for. He's going for a big, slow, sympathetic dummy. And when he does get moving, he does get pretty rad. Like the scene where he runs Freddy through the windows, and he actually picks up speed and he starts to run, which I thought was pretty rad. But there's just something sort of inherently dopey about that costume. And then in 2009, they went for like that real Michael Bay, like over the top, like they made the jacket. It was a big, long, slick, like looked like a trench coat. And he's got like the belt and and just sort of like, I did enjoy the mask in that one, the potato sack or like the bed sheet that he wore on his head. I thought that looked great. I wasn't a huge fan of the mask and the way that it sat on the face and sort of like the combination of it. Plus, the way he discovers the mask was a little bit of a right. It wasn't like a very exciting scene. Like he just sort of finds it in a box and puts it on.
Yeah.
And there was sort of like they sort of missed some of like the storytelling. Like I feel like 2009 really like stumbled all over itself story wise. They were trying to cram so much in there. But Jason's look in that one was sort of like there was so much going on. There was almost too much. So when I approached doing Ghost Jason, there was sort of like the lesson to be learned from the last 4 movies is where is this look of Jason going, and what was it about what is it? Why is it that I don't like these, but I like the original ones? But what do I like about this new stuff that might be kind of cool? Saw all those attempts to do a jacket, which never really seemed to work. But once I got like an M65 jacket that sort of had that Sears work shirt look to it and had the same coloring and started to get back into that same color palette, which Friday the 13th, 2009 had Jason in a lot of black. Friday the 13th, Freddy versus Jason had him in a lot of brown. It was like a big brown jacket. Same thing with Jason X. It was a brown sort of like coat over it with some blue stuff underneath. So it was getting back to that green and tan brown sort of color spectrum, and then using gray as the neutral to sort of blend things together. Putting those together, simplifying them, like not a lot of like no hair, no like weird over the top disfigurations, just a bald, like he's just bald and he's kind of like decrepit, but not too crazy. Like the ears are eating away a little bit. The fingers are a little puffy and stuff like that and zombie like, and the skin's gray. And then, we had to come up with a new mask because in my opinion, like all the masks up to that point have been destroyed. I mean, that's if we're going by canon, like, and we follow the Paramount canon and sort of branch off where Jason Goes to Hell goes, Never Hike Alone takes a corner and goes, okay, we're telling our own story from here. Like that's fine. You guys can do that. But after part 8, this is our new sequel.
Yep.
And so knowing that the mask was destroyed in that, the mask was destroyed in part 7, and there was no other mask, that something new had to come up. We had to come up with something new. I tried to base it on masks from the actual 1960s, the Jacques Plante masks, the ones that it was originally modeled off of anyway, and sort of had something designed off of that that would have been from that era, that was thick, that had sort of, that would stop a hockey puck if you got hit in the face, and just worked on the shape a little bit. And, we worked with the people at CFX Louisiana to create that mask, because they had done our silicone appliances, which is the formed hood and zombie hands. You can order those in Ghost Gray and get the same exact stuff that we use in Never Hike Alone. And then we came up with the design for that hockey mask. And when we put all those elements together, it was like, it slowly came together, but it just felt like, I feel like I got the past and the future all in one package.
Yep.
It's like, it is the past, but look, it's got the newer, cooler things without having to go over the top. The jacket doesn't need to be swinging around by his knees. I don't need a belt with a thing to hook my 10-foot machete into. Like, I just pick up things that are near me, and I use those things because they're spread out all over camp, because Jason's probably got weapons hidden everywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we do have, I won't spoil anything, but we have one kill in Never Hike Alone where you're going to be like, where the hell did Jason even pull that out of? Like, he just pulls out a weapon that he's got like stuffed in the back of his jacket. Like, there's just different things that make this sort of like, you don't need to see it, you just believe it with him.
Yep.
So like, if he's carrying around another weapon and he's got another one tucked away somewhere, like, you wouldn't really doubt it.
Well,
Like,
it was reminiscent of Part 6. It was like, he throws, almost like a dart, like a kunai, and hits the guy in the head and throws, and hits him in the boat. Like, damn, where did that come from?
Oh, I know, right?
So, I mean, that's what it was reminiscent of.
Oh, totally. And I get it. And like the, and that utility belt is sort of like the one thing that I would say about the Part 6 design that feels like, okay, it's starting to get a little goofy. It looks kind of cool, but like having the utility belt and having stuff like that, like, I don't know, it has, from a design wise, like, the costume almost looks better without it.
Yeah.
And I wish they would have had Jason with zombie hands in that movie. But again, saving time, saving budget, like, put the gloves on him. You don't have to do the hands every day. Put a little gray on CJ's fingers and it'll be good to go. And then just wear like I think they just had the latex hoods back then. So, it made it probably a little bit easier. But yeah, and that's sort of, like I said, like, everything sort of with Never Hike Alone is sort of like, where has Friday the 13th been going? What is the modern version of this that modern audiences would, be more apt to like want to follow it, and people who would either critique Friday the 13th or don't really like buy into the old formula, that, show them that, I think for me, that there's a lot more story and depth to these characters than has really ever been sort of led on from previous films. Like, I always got really deep. I was deeply emotionally connected to the Tommy character, to the Jason character, to the lore of Camp Crystal Lake, and sort of wanting to bring that type of seriousness to the actual characters that we're seeing. They're not just cannon fodder. They're not just sort of like one-off characters that get killed, in every single film. But these are like real people running away from a real sort of threat, and try to treat it that way. Because that would be more like if we encountered a Jason in a real life and he stabbed us in that moment. When we get stabbed in life, we don't just like get stabbed and fall over and die. Like, we bleed out for a long time. We suffer, and like, there's still more time to get away. And so I think that there's a lot of entertainment value in that moment between getting stabbed and either getting away or not getting away, that you now have this impediment now draining life from you, and you're running out of time. And that sort of puts the ticking clock on you escaping, which I thought really added to the Kyle side of it too. But that's sort of like, how I sort of approach it from that standpoint.
No, definitely. And to kind of bring everything back full circle, I mean, with the lawsuits and the way things were going with the franchise, you at this stage, we still don't know if we're going to get a mini series that's done by A24. So I mean, that's heading in the right direction. But these fan films, yours, and we've had the privilege of seeing so many of them, by Peter Anthony, by Jason Pitts, by Bobby Heckman. We've seen a lot of these, and the cool thing is that everybody has, it's like their own touch on everything, and it just proves that how much this franchise means to everybody, because you don't see a lot of, and we'll get to this one. You don't see a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street fan films. You don't see a lot of Halloween fan films. And it's just because,
Well, they're
Well,
out
one
there.
one it's hard to
They're
hit
just not
Robert
getting the
Englund.
attention.
Yeah, they just don't. But Friday the 13th does, and and a lot of the stars have come back. You know, Adrian King's been in them. Like you said, Tom Matthews. You know, so getting those people back in, it's amazing that they still hold Friday the 13th in a little high regard because you know they're willing to come back. But you know what? Back to what I just said. There's not a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street fan films, and I'm pretty sure we got some inside info that you might change that.
Well, I mean, I can't take a lot of credit for it. I am working on the Dylan's New Nightmare project. I am a producer on that project, but all the credit goes to Cecil Laird and the Horror Show and his team. He's the one who put that project together originally and just brought me in to sort of, you know, I've been down this road before, you know what I mean? Dealing with copyright issues, dealing with crowdfunding, you know, trying to pull alumni in and pulling a crew together. And, you know, Cecil had this really great idea. You know, that's really where it started was, you know, picking up where Wes Craven's New Nightmare left off and then bringing back Nico Hughes to play Dylan Porter, which to me, it's like, that's a no-brainer. That is something that if you were going to make a sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, you would have to bring back Nico. You would try to bring back Heather. You would try to bring back Robert. You would try to bring back all of these different people because that's sort of the world that existed in. It's, you know, if you were going to do that legitly. So the fact that we actually have, you know, Miko involved is a nice starting point for the franchise because Dylan was Freddy's conduit into the real world. He was using Dylan in order to get into the real world and using sort of the same formula that he used in Victims in the actual films. Whatever that dream demon in was sort of using Dylan in that same way. So to have Dylan sort of grow up and then still sort of have this connection with Freddy that never went away. Like they may have destroyed him, but there still is that little kernel of fear. And he may be able to control it for a long time, but over time, as that, you know, as you start to get older and you start to become an adult and, you know, life starts to get at you where you're stressed about life and you're stressed about your job and you're stressed about where you're going. And then, you know, with Dylan specifically, like slipping up and sort of realizing that like there is this thing that from your past that could come back and get you. And Dylan's New Nightmare is about those past fears resurging up to the surface and Freddy finding his way back to the real world through Dylan. And I was just like, yeah, this makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't like, I don't have to take like a huge leap to get this. Like you tell me this, you know, in a pitch and I get it. And so, yeah, for that film, it was just really about bringing together as many talented people as possible, using all of our connections that we have in the independent horror world. You know, we got Dave McRae to come in and play Freddy. We got Ron Sloan from Friday the 13th Part 5 to play a character in it. We got Cindy Kanai from Friday the 13th Part 6. She plays the woman who gets engaged in the park. She was also in a film for us called Pathosis. She plays Lucia, actually Andrew Lady's mother in that movie. And so we're able to bring some nice special guests there. We got some nice local actors that are in it too. We brought in Nora Hewitt, who did special effects on Never Hike in the Snow and Disappear. And obviously she's a winner in Face Off. And she worked on 13 Fanboy. She worked on a recent short film that's been going around called Guts. I mean, she's a fantastic artist. So it was really a good combination of people coming together. You know, Ben Meredith is the DP. You know, I think so for that team. So it's like, partially taken from the Womp Spomp library. And like, you know, we have Brian Perez Dapple and a lot of our post-production people, Tom Newell, who cut Pathosis, who also cuts on a lot of the VHS films. He's cutting Dylan's New Nightmare. So it was really about sort of taking this really great idea, giving Nora and Cecil really a chance to sort of design their perfect Freddy, the Freddy they've always wanted to see. Because it's not the same Freddy from Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It's sort of, he's reformed, but he's reformed from Dylan's memories. And since Dylan watched the original movies a lot, he sort of has a twist on those original Freddys that sort of come in there, like the Part 2 and the Part 1, and a little bit of that demon Freddy from Freddy vs. Jason. Since EA is an actual demon, that side's starting to come through in show too. So it's a pretty cool combination of stuff to all come together for that project. We filmed it last November in Phoenix, and now we're doing some second unit shooting in Los Angeles in March. Because it actually does take place in Los Angeles. So all of our sets, our interiors are in Phoenix, and then our exteriors and our establishing shots and everything there will be shot in Los Angeles, and it will feel like we shot the entire thing in Los Angeles. If you didn't see this interview, you probably wouldn't know. But I'm really proud of him. You know, for people who don't know, this is an episode. This isn't a full hour and a half long film. Cecil, he raised a decent amount of money, but not that much money.
Right.
If he wanted to do this big time, like we would have had to raise like Never Hike Alone 2 budget, $250,000 to do the entire story. So this will play a lot like Never Hike in the Snow in the sense that it's like a 25 to 30-minute pilot episode that starts the story. You're going to get some really meaty scenes in there. You're going to see some really cool stuff. But some of it is also going to be about Dylan himself and the life that he's living and the struggles that he has. And, not just like, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It was all about Heather. And it was about the fact that she was trying to find her resurgence as an actress and trying to move on with her life. And all of a sudden, not only does this like old film from her past that keeps haunting her come back to haunt her, but the actual thing from the films is haunting her type thing. So it's a little bit of a retread on that, but through Dylan's eyes. And, having Miko back was, really cool because Miko had sort of stepped away from a long time, sort of the same thing with like Tom Matthews. And with these films, we've sort of been able to be like, this is, a good chance for them as an actor to come back in and be like, you know what, I still got it. It's a good place for me to come and like kind of stretch myself out and get back into the swing of things. And Miko really brought it. I mean, he was really dedicated to getting back into that mode and getting back into the acting mode. We had talked about prior to filming sort of the steps that he wanted to take to get ready for the role. And he was just really, really serious about it. And he really cared. So, that's usually step one, because one of the downfalls of doing some of these fan films is sometimes you get the sense that like, okay, there might be the alumni is here for the check. Like they're getting a free pampered weekend where they get treated like a god or a goddess. And like everybody makes them like, oh, you're the best. And then you film something and they send them home and everyone gets paid and has a good time. Whereas like Miko was more focused on like, I'm going to come here and I'm going to give a good performance. I want to do something that like means something. I just don't want to do this to do this. And that was, I think with Cecil bringing me onto the project, I think helped showed Miko that like he was taking it seriously. Like he wanted to achieve certain levels of execution. And so since Cecil, has a lot of experience around film, but not necessarily running the types of sets that we do, he brought me on sort of as a liaison to be like, let me help you with a little bit of a bigger production and show you how to do it. And so it's really been sort of me setting things up a little bit, but then Cecil running with it and doing a great job. He really picked up the ball, I got to say, and like got a lot of the work done. I didn't have to hold his hand. I didn't have to come in and fix everything after he was done with it or like help him through stuff. He really did a great job of just like, I gave him a little bit of advice. He took it and ran with it and did a great job.
That's super cool.
That's a sign of a good director without a doubt.
Yeah. And we really got the impression, we didn't mention it before, but we talked to Ron Sloan about a month ago and we talked about this project a little bit.
Cool.
And he basically said, this is Miko's movie.
Yeah.
And like, he really gave us the impression that he went after it and he gave it everything he could give it. And so exactly what you're saying is jiving with what he was saying. And I was also, going to bring up that, a lot of people feel that, Robert Englund is irreplaceable, that there's no way that you could do something like this without him. But I have to say, after seeing like some of the makeup effects, like pictures of it, and then seeing like some test footage of Dave McRae, like doing his best, Freddy Krueger, I kind of think maybe they could pull it off. I mean, it looked pretty legit, just me using my imagination from the pieces I had to put together.
Yeah, no, Dave did another one, like put a lot of work into it. Him and Cecil going back and forth, sending videos back and forth to each other, working really down and dirty. Dave just working in silhouette, just trying to get the body postures right, just trying to get that. I got to say, like, there's one shot, we called it the goblin shot, where it's sort of like a 3/4 side angle where he's like looking out. And you see him like looking, not like right at camera, not the one that was like right in his face, but the one that's more off to the side, a little bit wider. And he made that face and like the laugh. And it was like, we're like, oh, he's got it. Like he really just he personified what Robert brought to that character to make him Freddy. Obviously, like no one's ever going to be Robert. Robert is Robert. Like
right.
Freddy is Robert. So I think for us, and I think what Dave's mission is he wasn't just trying to like do an imitation of Robert. He's not trying to just do one for Robert. He's trying to bring that spirit, but then bring his own side to it, and then take what comes. Honestly, like we're all happy with the performance. We know that there's definitely going to be people out there that no matter what we do, because it's not Robert, we'll never win them over.
Right.
But I feel like Dave is going to win over more people than he loses. And so that's the ultimate goal here, because when you're dealing with any property, I mean, the same thing with Never Hike Alone, same thing when we've done stuff with Halloween, you know, there are just some diehard fans that there's nothing you could do to ever reach the potential of what they see for the character. And honestly, those are the types of people that need to go out and make a fan film for themselves, because it's the only way they'll ever see the films as they want to see them. They'll ever see Michael portrayed that, or they'll just learn the lesson that, like, this is all a lot harder than it looks.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, and it's not just setting up a camera. It's not just getting a bunch of people around. It doesn't even matter how expensive the camera is you have. Like, you could have the best camera in the world and you could still make it look like it was shot with a $12, like, you know, handy cam that you got at some
Dollar
thrift
General.
store, Dollar General, where you're still feeding like DV tapes into it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it really comes down to, at the end of the day, like, you know, what is your story and how committed is everyone to showing up and doing a good job versus showing up and having a good time.
Right.
Because there's nothing wrong with a bunch of people getting together, having a good time, making something, sitting back and laughing about it. And that becomes sort of a different experience. It sort of becomes like going to summer camp. Like, legitly, you're going out, you're doing some outdoor activities, you're having some fun together, you're sitting back and watching it. It may not be perfect, but you have a laugh and you have a good time. And then there are people out here trying to, like, who are just, this story is like flowing out of them. They can't help but tell this story, and they feel like it's a story that needs to be taken seriously. And so those are the types of projects that I'm drawn to, the ones that feel like they have an air of seriousness to it. Not that we can't joke around, not that we can't have lighthearted moments, but that we're trying to put it together as if, you know, we're following the same steps that when I go and I go to a set and I work in, you know, the real industry, that we're running our sets the same way, our expectations are the same. And obviously, there are going to be certain things that we don't have in our arsenal because we don't have that much money, time, and people.
Sure.
But there are certain ways to sort of consolidate tasks, consolidate responsibilities, and take responsibility for certain things, and get ahead of the game to make sure that you might not have a certain amount of people to take care of these things on set. But if everybody takes care of a little bit and everybody's paying attention, that you can raise the elements of a scene, whether it even be from the production design, you know, coming together as a team to, like, this is one of the things I'm most proud of. Josh Schultz came into production design on Dylan's New Nightmare. And that became sort of like, it takes a village, because, you know, he had to design an entire house by himself, but we came in and we worked together, and, you know, we're able to kind of set things up beforehand. And even though no one there is like a decades-long production designer, we all kind of took the time to make sure that we were designing something that fit well for the camera, and taking the experiences that we've had from bigger sets and saying, okay, just like from the production design standpoint, this can't feel like an Airbnb, but it also can't feel like
Right.
a you know, I feel like one thing that people do is they either forget to put stuff on the wall, or they forget to sort of design things. They can't just be in a white room. They got to, like, you got to put things up that make it feel like you're in an actual place.
Mhm.
Or it feels like you're in someone's college dorm room where they're like trying to sneak, like, oh, I'm going to put a Stranger Things poster up in the background because that would be cool.
Oh shit!
You know
Well,
what I mean?
now next time I'm gonna blur my background out, because
You're fine. You're fine. That's what it's supposed to look like on a podcast. But in a film, you need things that feel like they're like normal people live there. And I would say that, like, with Dylan's New Nightmare, that's one of the things I'm most proud of in the movie, is the fact that, like, all the scenes, all the sets are really nice. Like, they're really cool. We had some really cool sets, and even those, like, a lot of it takes place in a house. Some of it takes place on a sound stage that we got to shoot in Phoenix, and we got to design the sound stage and how that was all set up. I think we did a good job with what we had, considering the budget that we were on, because we were shooting for under $30,000. So to have 30 minutes for $30,000 and get the type of value that we got out of it, that's going to be, I'm pretty impressed with the fact that we were able to stretch it as far as we can. But luckily, the Indiegogo is still open. So if anybody wants to support it, you can still support Dylan's New Nightmare. You can still get your name in the credits. Same thing with Never Hike Alone 2. Like, we're about $9,000, less than $9,000 away from adding a kill montage to the film if we hit $250,000 on our budget. Not to mention there's other things that we can add to it if we keep adding to it. So, right now Dylan's New Nightmares in post-production. We actually just approved the teaser and the trailer in cut. Those are going off to post-production for colorizing and sound mixing and all that fun stuff, composition. Ryan Perez Dapple, who does the score in Never Hike Alone, is also doing the score for Dylan's Nightmare. So I would say look out for some news for Dylan's as far as like releasing trailers and teasers within the next few weeks. Once we get that ball really rolling, we're getting all our bids right now. But we still have to pay for all the post-production. We still have to send everybody's stuff out, make all the Blu-rays and stuff like that. So any support that people can give Cecil, so he's not having to pull money out of his own pocket at the end of this to start sending stuff around, would be really beneficial. I can speak from experience that I think I would feel better if Cecil didn't have to like spend half his life savings to get everybody Blu-rays.
Right. Definitely. Well, wow. Well, that was going to be the next thing, was basically, where can everybody, follow you, and where's everything at? And Indiegogo is the place to go. And, I do want to make sure that some of these comments get to you, because, we have a lot of followers and a lot of people that support us. And 3PD Films, that's Bobby. Victim No More was a really enjoyable film, and he's asking, after Never Hike Alone 2, is that it for your Friday the 13th fan films, or
tapping out?
Yep.
I'm done. That's enough. It's enough fan films out of me. I've been doing this for 6 years. You know what I mean? And it's been a ride. It's been all sorts of things, but I have like original projects that I want to get to. I got our animated stuff. Obviously, we have Ghost in the Fog, which is another Friday the 13th animated short. We've talked about doing what did I call it? The Ghost of Crystal Lake, which is another prequel that I would love to do animated. So animated, I can sort of send to a storyboard artist. We can talk, we can build it off to the side. Not as much goes. I don't need to be on a physical set. I don't need to take time off of work to go do it. It's just I can record voices at home. We can record voices in each other's homes, and we can make it over time and raise money for it that way. It's the only way I'm going to do any more Friday the 13th, because I feel like those are the only two chapters in the Never Hike verse that I feel need to be told to fill in the gaps to kind of tell our whole story. But if those don't get made, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Maybe I'll write a fan, novel or something like that one day.
Yeah.
But, my main focus right now is getting Never Hike Alone 2 done, walking away from that. I'm attached to another project that I can't talk about right now. And then I have a couple of short films that I have up my sleeve that I want to raise money for. And then I'm going to be producing a few other shorts as well, which will be coming up this year. So there's a lot on my plate, and I just got to make sure that I get Never Hike Alone 2 done. It's exactly where it needs to be. And then really, I think it will say all I really need to say about Friday the 13th and Jason Voorhees and Tommy Jarvis and the whole 9 yards. It really is everything I've ever wanted to see in one Friday the 13th film in one movie.
There you go. Don't oversaturate it. That's the big thing. So
just trying to like keep it simple. There is a lot. So there is sort of I do have that factor of like, all right, how cheesy is it getting? I need to make sure that this feels real, but definitely keeping the page counts and the scene counts sort of down, so they're not getting like 10-page scenes. You know what I mean? That's when it starts to get ridiculous. Absolutely,
man. I know you're a busy man. So that's pretty much everything we could have possibly asked for, man. I mean, you're
I did see another question in here too. Somebody said that that they prefer Never Hike Again versus Never Hike Alone.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Who would that be? Huh? That's
right.
Bobby again.
I do like Never Hike. Trust me, no one is sadder that I had to lose Never Hike Again, Jason Takes Crystal Lake, and The Final Hike. I lost 3 great titles in one fell swoop to make one movie. So I know for me, Never Hike Again was really the first chapter of Never Hike Alone 2, which is why I didn't just like slide it over. I still got a long time before the movie comes out. I can still change the name of it between now and then. Our executive producer, Bill Hunt, is another fan of Never Hike Again. I don't know if you guys know who Bill Hunt is, but he was one of the effects artists on Jason Goes to Hell. And then he shipped off to New Zealand to work on the Lord of the Rings movie. So he's worked, decades on the Lord of the Rings movies, and he's an executive producer on our project. He does a lot of our concept art and stuff like that. So I'll say this right out. We're going to do a poll at some point. There's 3 different things we want to do with the Never Hike Alone 2 title. We'll either do Never Hike Alone 2 as it stands, keep it the same way, get the big swooping 2, which I feel Terrifier took from us. The next thing we'll do is what I realized that I should have done in the first place probably is how I had it in the original posters, but that would use the Roman numerals. So like the two eyes, which would be kind of two slices, which would be kind of cool. And then there's Never Hike Again. So when we get to that part of it, like when we're in post and we're doing the titles, I may do some polls for the Indiegogo backers. So if you want to say, become an Indiegogo backer, you're going to get a poll and we'll figure out what the name of this movie is going to be. And yeah, I mean, it might make sense that it goes Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Again. Or I guess it would go Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone, Never Hike Again. Because that's the continuity order. Yeah, and if people do want to find us, just a reminder, like we're on YouTube, Womp Stomp Films, WOMPSTOMPFILMS. That's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're going to be, next couple of weeks, my mission is to sort of get all of our ad stuff back out onto the market, remind people that we're still trying to make a movie. Since we're getting so close to $250,000, I'd like to raise that money sooner than later so I can book that time later on in the summer to pick up what will eventually be a kill montage scene. We have some casting announcements coming up. Hey, exclusive. We signed another alumni to do a guest cameo into the film who's going to be playing a role. So we're going to be announcing that in about a week. And then if we open up this new scene, that's going to be like 6 new characters that are all going to get murdered. And those are people that need to be named. So we need to figure, like, those will be perks that come up onto the crowdfund. In fact, we just had another one come up where we created a new character, like the security guard that works at the hospital. So that perk just got perked up, but we'll probably have, like, I think at least 4 more new names if we get this new one for this new scene that we're going to do. And those might be some stunt casting people as well that may be not necessarily Friday the 13th, but there'll be people that you recognize from other social media entities that will be a lot of fun to have on set and murder very violently.
Well, we like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We like murder and stuff because we're weirdos. But I mean,
hey, gotta get that body count up, right?
Yeah, we do a horror podcast. If we didn't, something would be wrong with us.
Yeah, I did want to throw you one more question, just because it's something that I heard thrown around a little bit, and I just wanted to get your personal take on it because you seem a pretty down to earth and humble kind of guy. I've heard people refer to you as the savior of horror. And 1, I'd like to know why you think they're saying that, and 2, how do you respond to something like that?
I don't know. It's just,
Listen to this nonchalant answer. I mean, the savior of horror.
I know. I sort of look at him like, I don't know how I did that. I'm just happy that they like my stuff. You know what I mean? It's just the most fulfilling thing as a creator is to hear that somebody likes what you did. Somebody watched it. They took the time to watch it all the way through, and they got enjoyment out of it. So for me, it's all about, like I said, like when I made the first Never Hike Alone, I had one very specific goal in mind, that on a Friday the 13th, for the first time in 30 years, Friday the 13th fans would have something to smile about. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that simple. That's my only goal, in the fact that, with Never Hike Alone 1, it was sort of like, I knew I could get people through the movie. If I could get people through the movie, that's one thing. And then I had, Tommy Two Guns waiting for him at the end of the movie. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Two Guns. He's in that movie. But that's going to be my nickname for production this year. Either that or Tommy Salami. That was such a big moment for people. I mean, it's like one of my favorite things that I can never recreate. You know what I mean? Like, no one knew Tom was coming. And then just the look on people's faces when he shows up. I remember watching early sort of like watch throughs of people watching it for the first time. My favorite part was that part, because people are like, oh, and you just see them light up, and I just see their inner child just sort of like brighten up with inside of them. And that's why we make movies. I mean, for me, I just want to make people say, wow. So if someone thinks that I'm the savior of horror or whatever, that's fine. That's I like hyperbole. It makes me feel good. My ego's sizzling nice. But at the end of the day, the reality is that I'm an independent filmmaker. I love what I do. I'm happy for the fact that I was blessed with finding the people in my life that make me look better than I would be if I was on my own. I have a great team around me. They're all so talented, and my one job is honestly just to inspire them to do the jobs that they do, and just keep consistent direction all the way through, and come up with fun stuff for us to do. And then obviously raise a bunch of money in between.
Of course.
I would say that. But, as far as savior goes, I mean, I don't know what I'm saving other than, I do feel I will take credit for reminding people that Jason doesn't have to suck that bad. I think I did a pretty good job of raising Jason's sort of credit with younger generations and stuff like that. I feel like for the younger kids who discovered Never Hike Alone as their first Friday the 13th project, or the person who never really gave Friday the 13th a chance and watched Never Hike Alone, and since it's different, sort of got them more interested in the project. So I have seen that. I'm really happy to have contributed to a lot of people's love for the franchise, because they're joining me in the same place. I'm just a big Friday the 13th nerd. I just learned how to make movies at the same time, and now I'm putting those two things together. And this has honestly been a dream come true, because I moved to LA in 2008 to work on Friday the 13th films. I never got that opportunity. They kept canceling films, or they were off out of reach, or they weren't hiring, or I just couldn't get a job. They didn't think I was good enough. And then when the movies failed us, I just took this shot and said, I'm going to make this own movie on my own. There's no way, that's what I try to explain to people. I was like, when people make a fan film now, after Never Hike Alone, there's sort of like, there's a formula for that. You know what I mean? There's sort of like, this is what could happen. If you do it right, this could happen to you. You could, get your film put on this website, or you can go to this, film festival, or you can get to know alumni, and, list all those things that sort of like, I was very lucky enough to sort of experience by doing it. When I was doing it, all I was ever told was that fan films suck and no one will ever watch them. That was going to be my reward after going through all this stuff. So I think that, like, if anything, I'm not the savior of horror, but I hope that I at least gave everybody the platform, or helped everybody get that platform to show them, to say, now you can do it too.
Well, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
I introduced my daughter to the Friday franchise. Her two favorites were New Beginning and Never Hike Alone. So obviously,
high taste, right. High quality taste in the franchise right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't get any higher than part 5.
No.
Actually, the band, it was so in the beginning when we do that Suicidal Tendencies ripoff song when he's running through the woods, which is literally a Suicidal Tendencies ripoff song. The name of that band is Damn Enchiladas. So I'm a big fan of that.
There we go.
Love that.
No doubt. Oh, man. Clint, you got anything else, man? The man has spilled his guts all over this podcast.
No, I love it. I
mean,
I think we got
and again,
exactly
man,
what we were trying to get.
Just keep doing what you're doing. We're both absolutely huge fans. We tell everybody to check out Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow. We always tell people to check out those two as far as the Friday fan films. They're amazing. Just like I said in the beginning, production value is off the chart. You know what you're doing, and just, keep doing what you're doing. Because you may not think you're the savior of horror, but you've definitely been the savior of the Friday the 13th fan film with a couple other people. So, just keep doing what you're doing, because we're enjoying it, and we'll get the word out best we can for you, so that way you can keep on doing this.
All right, I really appreciate it, guys, and I appreciate you having me on to spill my guts.
Yeah,
absolutely,
and we'll check out those Indiegogos.
Yes, we will. We'll post them on the page too.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
All right, brother. Have a good night. Thank you, man.
All right, have a good one.
All right. Well, goddamn. Sorry we didn't get to all your guys' comments. But yeah, so obviously, if you haven't checked out his films, Never Hike Alone, Never Hike in the Snow, Never Hike Alone 2 is still, like you said, Indiegogo is still live. I was hoping we would get a little more with, Dylan's Nightmare, but we can only talk so much about it. But
he is only a producer on the film, and he doesn't want to speak for the the guy who's making the movie. So I mean,
so we got to get his ass on here.
Yeah, probably ought to.
So
and don't forget
guys,
Miko. You want to talk to Miko at some point?
I've reached out to him. I'll try again.
Well, maybe we'll see him in New Jersey and say something then.
Yep. So guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I thought it was very enlightening, especially from somebody that's made really good, Friday fan films.
Yeah. He's the kind of guy you could talk to for 5 hours.
You know what? If I could, I would. and I like talking to people like that. I mean, they bring so much to the table. Like, this is why we do what we do, because we love horror. He does what he does because he loves horror. He loves Friday the 13th, and sometimes it just doesn't translate. You ever notice that? Like, sometimes like you may love something, but it doesn't translate to like film or book or game or whatever it may be. It's just weird. Like, if you were that into it, you would think it'd be better. But, sometimes you just got the limitations.
Yeah.
Clint's going to die, guys. I'm just letting you know.
What are you talking about?
Clint's going to die. He's
not going to die.
He's going to go sleep on me. I mean,
die.
Look at his name. I mean, Hiker Man. So, but yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Well, I mean, I did.
Yeah.
So I definitely got it. You good? Anything else you want to add to the peoples?
No, check out those freaking Indiegogos.
Oh God, yes, please.
Dylan's New Nightmare. I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to that a lot.
I am.
I mean,
really hope people give Dave
Never
a
Hike Alone
Freddy.
too. I mean, like whatever they end up calling that thing, I definitely want to see it
again. God, I hope.
I hope they're not good. Yeah, that'd be cool.
It would be cool. But yeah, I can definitely tell you that. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm definitely looking to see Miko again. I definitely want to see what Dave can bring to the table as Freddy, because I'm telling you, like you 100%. Said, in the test footage and the pictures, I mean, damn. I'm never going to say anybody can take Robert Englund's place as Freddy, but I'm telling you.
Yeah. And I like what he was saying, that it was a reimagining of the character, because basically he's older now, and what he's manifesting is what he remembers. So it's not going to be the same.
Exactly.
So that's a pretty cool.
No, definitely.
Angle on it.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool. No doubt. But yeah, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the interview. It will be on the channel if you didn't get to check it out. It's, I think it'll be on Facebook. I think you can view it if you want to. But yeah, so we're gonna wrap up. Yeah. So don't let the bad ones ruin a good time, like I always say.
Yep. And I hope you find movies that haunt you.
Bye, guys.
See ya.